And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hey there, how you doing? Welcome to the show. I'm upbeat because it's Thursday and this is the last time I got to do this for a few days. Guys, fair warning, there will be some talk of that monstrous supposed human who lives at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue today. And, you know, if you can't take it, I understand. I can't believe that any of you actually watched and or listened to the speech. I was thrilled to hear that he followed directions, apparently, and read from the teleprompter. And because he was following directions and reading from the teleprompter and unable to do what he calls weave, unable to digress and talk about how wondrous he was, he had to stick to the script to talk about how wondrous he was, and it pissed him off, and there was nobody responding back to him and feeding his ego, and so he apparently raced through it. He was talking much faster than he normally does, and because he was pissed off in general, he was screaming. So apparently what he did is screamed at the American people for 15 or 16 minutes. And it didn't go over well amongst his followers. I found these responses, which I just loved. I mean, these are the do you think I can find it? Here, Eric Erickson said, "Why is he yelling at us?" That's a big conservative talk show host. Well, never mind. Fuck it. I so hate his guts. He gave out something called warrior checks. This is going to all, I guess, of America's military people. And this is so clever. They're going to be receiving checks of $1,776. Get it? 1776. If the American Revolution started last year, they'd be getting a whole lot more, right? $2,024. And since, in fact, we should have another American Revolution, who knows? Somewhere at a later date, there might be some new checks going out to a new generation of warriors. I got to tell you, total digression here. I happened to see this on, I forget where. Where did I see it? I just wrote it down. And it said, Riley Keough, and I was told that is Elvis Presley's granddaughter. Okay? Elvis Presley's only granddaughter is the biological mother of John Travolta's son. That's the kind of news we need more of. I mean, total distraction and the kind of thing you think, what the fuck? And you need to find out more. I couldn't find out more. Elvis Presley's granddaughter is the biological mother of John Travolta's son. It was the only thing I read yesterday that didn't depress the holy hell out of me. It, in fact, made me curious. I mentioned revolution, and I saw that a very unlikely source was calling, essentially, sure sounded like, revolution. And that unlikely source is David Brooks. He is a conservative opinion writer for the New York Times. I think he's also in the New Yorker or the Atlantic. And sometimes he drives me crazy. Other times I think, yeah, he is a sober and deep thinker. And he wrote this: "It's time for a national civic uprising. It's time for Americans in universities, law, business, nonprofits, the scientific community, civil servants, and beyond to form one coordinated mass movement. Trump is about power. The only way he's going to be stopped is he possesses rival power." That's, if not a call to arms, it is an obvious call from a conservative, moderate conservative, who you couldn't imagine saying something like that even last year. And he's right. And he's right. And what I wonder is, when are we going to see that? When are we Americans going to take more risks in standing up against this dangerous son of a bitch? When are we going to show the courage which we mock Republican senators and office holders for not possessing? What are we doing? I'm sitting here yapping. Whoop-de-doo. I'm really thinking we're going to have to go out there bodily. We're going to have to come out, no kings and all of that, where we all go nuts because there were, this many people here, there, and the other. It's got to make that no kings turnout look like a Sunday picnic. We've got to get serious about this, because this guy is increasingly a danger, not to us, not just to us and our children, but to the world. And that's not overstating it. Oh, Milton, you always come through. According to TMZ, 15 years ago, Travolta and his wife paid Elvis Presley's granddaughter 10 to 20K, part of a lawsuit involving Kelly Preston, now deceased, former business partner. I can't follow this. Kelly Preston was married to John Travolta, I think. Yes? Okay. And Richard says, now that was a true fireside chat, because when it was over, I burned my television. No, guys, we can't allow the insanity that he exhibits and then acts on a daily basis, hourly basis, who knows what, to inure us to the danger. The danger. Jack Smith, who of course they're going after because he's a truth teller. He's a serious law enforcement person. He's the one who's got the goods on Trump / treasonous conduct, right? And he gets hauled into a closed door meeting by the House Republican judiciary, right, guys? Because they don't want him talking in a way that we could hear. But here is something he said, and it got out. He said that our investigation developed proof beyond a reasonable doubt that President Trump engaged in a criminal scheme to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election and to prevent the lawful transfer of power. That is a criminal offense. That is treason. That is an impeachable offense. And bitch was able to scream at the nation last night as the president of this nation. You know what, guys? We got to get him out of there before his term ends. He has got to be gotten out. There are ways to do it. First, coming up in November, we've got to flip the House and the Senate. He then becomes impeachable, perhaps. And if that doesn't work, we've got to strong arm enough people to have him declared nuts. But then, of course, that'll put J.D. Vance into the presidency. But Trump is getting increasingly frightening. His pal, Alan Dershowitz, esteemed Harvard law professor, was at the White House, I believe, yesterday. Dershowitz was there. Who knows why? Maybe they were figuring out what they were going to do tomorrow when the Epstein papers are released, since both of them are heavily in it. But Dershowitz was at the White House, and he emerged saying that it is not clear whether or not Donald Trump could not serve a third term. This is a Harvard law professor. I ain't no Harvard law professor, but I know there's such a thing as the 22nd Amendment, which has been around almost as long as I have. And it flat out says, I mean, there's no equivocation, no person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. That would, I think, quite clearly mean a third term is not possible. Oh, God. So Dershowitz has written a book, I guess, about this, arguing that it is possible for Trump to have a third term. Oh, man. God help us. Ha! See, the Elvis Presley granddaughter and Travolta thing has gotten, one of you to say, here I was thinking it was going to be some weird crossover of genetics, like how Tony Hawk and Kurt Cobain share a grandchild because their kids married each other. I don't follow any of that. I do, however, know who Tony Hawk and Kurt Cobain are. But also Russ Belt's telling us, I saw James Woods and Rob Schneider both condemned. These are both Trumpers. Both condemned Trump's horrible comments about Rob Reiner's murder. Yeah. Richard is the guy who told us that he had just finished listening to the entire 2017 rendition of the Lynn Cullen Live. He'd gone back to the archives. And he's now telling us that something I said on January 24th, 2017 was, guys, this is going to be harder than we thought. This guy is insane. Yeah. You know, the insanity is so obvious and so out there and so apparent that invoking, what is it, which amendment is that, the 25th? That can just get him yanked because of his incapacity. It would seem to be a no-brainer. Did you see, besides, we know he's defacing the White House in so many ways, but have you seen what he did? The new addition, I don't mean the ballroom, the new addition to the wall he has, the wall, presidential walk of fame, he calls it. And this is where the photographs, the official photos of the presidents in chronological order, are displayed in the White House. We already know that Trump took Joe Biden's portrait off the wall and replaced it with a picture of an auto pen. Boy, I bet the guys, when they put that up, said, "Hardy, har, har." They think they are some clever, funny guys. But now he's gone even further. He has, and these are taxpayer, we paid to have these plaques, these, heavy-duty plaques with raised lettering, printed up and put under the portraits now. And have you seen what is under these portraits? The plaques are beyond belief. This is in the White House, which is not his fucking house. It's our house. It's the people's house. And he continues to desecrate it. So now, under Joe Biden's portrait, which isn't there, instead of the portrait of the auto pen, it says he couldn't get the screed he wanted on just one plaque. There are two plaques. And they say, Sleepy Joe Biden was by far the worst president in American history, taking office as a result of the most corrupt election ever seen in the United States. He presided over a series of unprecedented disasters. I'll spare you. I'll spare you. It is one outrageous thing after another. The second plaque under Biden says, nicknamed both Sleepy and Crooked, of course, by the current occupant, Joe Biden was dominated by his radical left handlers. They and their allies in the fake news media attempted to cover up his severe mental decline. Guys, you can't make it up. And it ends under Biden's auto pen portrait. Despite it all, President Trump would be reelected in a landslide and, in all caps, save America. That is now on the wall on a public area of the White House, our house. under Barack Obama's portrait. Barack Hussein Obama was the first black president, a community organizer, one-term senator from Illinois, and one of the most divisive political figures in American history. As president, he passed the highly ineffective Unaffordable Care Act, resulting in his party losing control of both houses of Congress. He goes on and on and on and on. Obama spied on the 2016 presidential campaign of Donald J. Trump and presided over the creation of the Russia hoax, the worst political scandal in American history. His hand-picked successor, Hillary Rodham Clinton, would then lose the presidency to Donald J. Trump. This is now on the wall under President Obama's picture. The fact that we have a man this crazy, this petty, this flat out batshit nuts with his finger on the nuclear trigger is so terrifying that I think we're just whistling past the graveyard all the time. It is amazing that more of us aren't out in the streets every day. Unbelievable. Did you see something that they're doing now? Well, you can believe it. I have to stop saying I can't believe it. I have to stop. That phrase is from another life, right? Because the most extraordinary things now, the most impossible things are believable under this crazy person. So they have announced that they are going to close down the premier weather atmospheric research center in the world. It is in Boulder, Colorado. It is referred to as the National Center for Atmospheric Research. And this is the place that has been at the forefront of almost every major climatological discovery in the last 40, 50 years. It was established in 1960. And they're disbanding it. Trump and his gang. They're going to take it apart. And, I was mentioning yesterday how rivers in Alaska and other places are turning orange, literally orange, because of the permafrost melting and the minerals being dredged up and then leaching into our aquifers. And there is not a time where this research center is not more important or necessary than right now. But see, like the job numbers and other numbers that Trump doesn't like and science that doesn't fit, he figures he just needs to squelch it. That'll be the end of that. We don't want to hear about, global warming. It's like a Russia hoax. In fact, the director of the Office of Management and Budget, who Susie Wiles in her Vanity Fair interview called a zealot, yeah, that's kind of understated. He is the guy probably most responsible for implementing the 2025 blueprint. I mean, this is the guy who is just doggedly checking off one thing after another that destroys the structure of our democracy. And he's the one behind this. And he said that the center has been one of the largest sources of climate alarmism in the country. Because, of course, the science it has been putting out is alarming. Their reaction is to bury it, to destroy it. This is the place that, it is responsible for so much stuff that has been invented, stuff for the space program, stuff for airplane safety. They, in their research, discovered what we know of as wind shear. That was in the 70s and the 80s. That came out of this place, and it resulted in the development of those wind shear detectors, which are now at airports all over the world and have probably saved thousands of lives because planes were going down as a result of wind shear. Someone interviewed when this news came out said, it is hard to find any climate scientist anywhere in the world that has not worked at or with this center. It supports the scientists who fly into hurricanes, the meteorologists who develop new radar technology, the physicists who envision and code new weather models. And dismantling it is like taking a sledgehammer to the keystone that holds up our scientific understanding of the planet we live on. Destruction by sledgehammer is exactly what this administration is all about. Never mind the thousands more jobs that are going to be lost because of this. There was a gathering of scientists in New Orleans when the news came out, and one of them said, what we are seeing is this administration canceling scientific thought and inquiry. Yeah. God Almighty. Let me share some of what you guys are saying on chat. I've been talking so much I haven't seen it. People keep saying MAGA is turning on Trump, but that misunderstands how this works, because he isn't a normal politician reacting to approval or disapproval. Trump is the center of the movement. He is in the position. He's not going anywhere. And he'll keep saying and doing what he's always done, regardless of the outrage or praise. This is all from Bree. Hollywood reactions, media outrage, even internal criticism don't change the trajectory. It's all noise. This is simply how the next few years are going to play out. I don't know. I mean, Bree, that's just too defeatist for me. I think he's wobbling. But the scary thing is, I mean, what I've said over and over again, when this guy feels cornered or threatened, he becomes more dangerous. Truly more dangerous. Richard says, oh, you're still quoting me from 2017. What did you go? Jesus. Richard. I thought you said you were checking into Western Psych after going through that whole year of shows. Apparently on October 6th, I said, we have to figure out a way to get this guy out of here. He's a true danger. Our country is dying. You know what? You know what you're telling me? I don't have to do a show every day. You're telling me I've been repeating myself for the last what? Jesus. God. I can't do the math. 17, 8, I mean like 8 years. My God. Yeah, here's a few more from you guys. He's a perfect storm of sociopathic narcissism. Yep. Mord, on the positive front, one can simply ask AI for nuclear codes these days. God. Oh, God. Help me. Richard? On October 12th, 2017, he says, I said, I don't have my head in the sand, and I gotta speak what I think, and I think we are fucked. Okay. Well, jeez. So I haven't evolved at all in the last 8 years. I'm stuck. I don't have my head in the sand. I actually, because it hasn't been, I see more, I know more, and I'm more frightened. Yeah, wow. What's astonishing is the people who aren't. Wow. Well, those are the whistling folk past the graveyard. Man. Speaking of graveyards, let's do an obit. I haven't done obits in a while. I always liked this guy. Because I thought he was one of the bravest people on the planet. I knew him as a CNN foreign correspondent, Peter Arnett. You'd see him on CNN, although he had started as an Associated Press correspondent. In fact, won a Pulitzer Prize for his reporting for AP during the Vietnam War. And he was one of the journalists that Lyndon Johnson and the others in his administration wanted to shut up, because they felt his reporting was undermining support for the war, which of course it was. So Peter Arnett's reportage has had a significant impact. And for a guy who waded into frightening situations, bombs falling, missiles exploding, he'd go running toward it, and he did that all his life. And he ended up dying in bed at 91. So, way to go. He was the last guy when reporters were kicked out of Baghdad, when, it all started coming down. He was the last one to leave. He always was the last one to leave. He was the last one as the Persian Gulf War began in 91, and as we invaded in 2003, he covered 17 wars. God, that's pretty astonishing. He famously interviewed Osama bin Laden. He interviewed Saddam Hussein, I think more than once. And I mean, he was not without. There were those who criticized him that he at times made mistakes. He went too far. But in this obit, there are a lot of photos of him in Vietnam, especially. And damn, he's out in front of the troops. There's like tanks behind him or soldiers behind him, and he's like the first one in the picture. In the days before Operation Desert Storm began, that'd be January 17, 1991, he moved into the Al Rashid Hotel. And this is where I first saw him in real extraordinary action. You guys too, probably, because we were glued to our sets. He moved into the Al Rashid Hotel in Baghdad. And almost every other reporter had already gotten the hell out. They were ordered to by their employers. I don't know if CNN ordered him to get out, but he didn't, nor did his photographer and his crew. He became the last Western reporter on the scene. This is from the obit. The eyes and ears of millions around the world. He was unable to televise live pictures initially because eventually his crew did leave. But as air raid sirens wailed and bombs shook the city, his reports by telephone from his hotel room gripped audiences like the dramatic broadcasts of CBS's Edward R. Murrow during the London Blitz during World War II. And, yeah. So, rest in peace, Mr. Arnett. A hell of a brave man and journalist. Milton writes, imagine crippling the nation's ability to predict hurricanes while simultaneously destroying FEMA's ability to aid in the aftermath. Yeah, you know, it's almost as if, and here I'll say it again, that this administration is working for our enemies and is trying, frankly, to weaken us as much as possible and to kill as many of us as possible. I don't know what other explanation there is. And I saw there's something, home heating costs are expected to rise by almost 10% this winter, and 9.2% is what it is. And this, as his administration has pulled back millions upon millions of dollars earmarked to help low-income people stay warm in the winter. The budget for the federal program that has always been there to help the people, he has cut. Sledgehammered. The executive director of the Energy Assistance Association said these decreases may not increases. He's talking about the 9.2 increase in heating costs. These increases may not sound dramatic to higher income households, but for families already struggling, they are devastating. Millions, literally millions of households are being pushed deeper into utility debt and closer to shutoffs simply because they cannot afford to keep their homes warm. You know, every page you turn in the newspaper is filled with articles about the cruelty of this administration, the corruption of this administration, the destruction of this administration. It is just, I mean, I was going to say hard to believe, but it's, no. And I don't know if you saw that Bondi's Justice Department, Trump's Justice Department, certainly not ours, is turning its guns on American citizens now who happen to be, I guess, probably what they think leftists are. Believe me, the lefties I know don't think I am. I'm too liberal. But to Bondi and Trump, I'm no different than a commie, nor probably are any of you. And the Justice Department put out a memo that went off to all law enforcement and justice people. Again, the words are wrong. They don't fit anymore. It was a memo. And it essentially told these people to start surveilling left-wing, I'm quoting, left-wing organizations. What's a left-wing organization? The ACLU? The Democratic Party? Planned Parenthood? Probably. And they not only want them to be watched, they literally want them surveilled. And the memo lists, here are the things that will get you surveilled now in Trump's America. If they think that what you are saying is anti-American, is anti-capitalism, or anti-Christianity. Now, guys, I do have to say, I mean, I criticize this country. They would consider that anti-American. I love this country. But they would consider me anti-American. I am anti-capitalism as it exists today. It is unregulated, unfettered, and we see the result with just a very few people having all the capital and so many others unable to feed their children or heat their homes. That kind of capitalism, I'm against it. An anti-Christian? Give me a fucking break. There are more Christians in this country than any other religion. Although what I speak of are the people who call themselves Christian, who would cheer as ICE beat up Jesus Christ. They're also going after anybody who is opposed to law and immigration enforcement. So all these brave citizens that you see in Minneapolis, in Chicago, New York, they are all increasingly going to be putting themselves in jeopardy, and God bless them. There need to be more of us doing it. They're also going to surveil anybody who shows hostility towards tradition. This is from her fucking memo. Who shows hostility towards traditional views on family, religion, and morality. Or who are into radical gender ideology. Well, guys, pretty much all of us, okay? We are now being called essentially the enemy. They want to use the stuff that is for, foreign terrorists to come after us. The memo says that the government will pursue people with a willingness to use violence against law-abiding citizens. They don't say anything about the violence of right-wing activists or the violence like the guys on January 6th, who the president, of course, has pardoned. No, they're looking for Antifa, which, again, doesn't exist as an organization. There is no headquarters. There is no membership roll. There is nothing. Antifa is a mindset. It means anti-fascist. I don't know about you, but I think that sums up the United States during World War II, right? My father was Antifa, right? I'm Antifa. God damn. So, there's all of that. The White House spokeswoman, Abigail Jackson, said, wow, the Trump administration will get to the bottom of this vast network inciting violence in American communities. They're talking about literally criminalizing political dissent. Political dissent of their actions and or policies. And they're calling us terrorists. And they're using counterterrorism measures intended for, terrorists against us. So when you see like the video of that poor soul being dragged out of his car by ICE on Mount Washington yesterday, being abused, requiring medical help, you saw the thugs, the brown shirts, breaking his window, hauling him through it. I mean, this is, they're coming, this is that classic first they came for. First they came for, the guys they said were murderous, rapist immigrants. And we saw who those people turned out to be. Nannies, wonderful nannies, and the great guy who fixed your roof. Gardeners, hardworking, tax-paying people. Not criminals in any way. And I don't know about this poor soul on Mount Washington. But we got to start stopping this. I know people there filmed it, witnessed it, but more and more we need to see a critical mass of us willing to physically interfere and save these people, because we are also on their list of people they want to silence, either through intimidation or imprisonment, whatever. We don't know. We are living in a nightmare. It bears no resemblance to the country my father lived in, my mom lived in, and that I lived in up until about a decade ago. And in that decade, I have watched, and especially in the last year, I have watched the country I knew literally be taken from me. And I'm wondering, at what point, if you see somebody stealing you of something precious and you sit and watch it, what does that say about us? I remember once, it reminds me of something, it wasn't funny at the time. I lived in Shadyside, and I got a phone call like about 10 p.m. one night, and this is before cell phone, so it was on my landline, and I picked it up, and the caller identified himself as my neighbor across the street. And he said, "Lynn, someone just stole your car." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Yeah, I watched him." And I didn't say what I wanted to say, which is, what the like, you couldn't have opened your window and screamed, "Hey, I've called 911. You didn't have to physically go after. I didn't say it, but I thought, you fucking idiot. You watched them steal my car, and then, like a good neighbor, you called me and told me my car wasn't where I thought it was." Un-effing believable. Here's a funny follow-up. In the last few local elections, that guy, he was a young guy at the time, that guy has run for office as a judge. Needless to say, I never voted for him, and I'm proud to say that a whole bunch of other people never voted for him either, because he ain't a judge. God. Okay. Hey, I came across one thing I came across that like did make me feel good was the police chief in Minneapolis. I don't know where it was, but somebody posted it. He was at some event, and he spoke, and it was very emotional, very moving. It wasn't anything he'd written down. It was from his heart. And he spoke about the fear in the community that he protects, and of his feeling of inability to do what he wants to do, to dispel, to make that fear go away. Because he said driving in some of the neighborhoods and seeing, empty stores, empty people not on the streets, I mean, he talked about it, and then he talked about it as a Christian at this time of year. And I think, I just think that more and more as people speak, even somebody, somebody sent me something, Mark Madden, who he is, local sports yapper, used to be at WTAE back in the day. Not the most likable fellow, if you ask me. But someone sent me some, and he's a right winger. He said the other day on his show, he's on the radio. Tell me I can't find it. I can't find it. Where did I get it? Oh, I know where I can find it. Hang on while I fiddle around on my phone. I hate this. Why can't you ever find crap you want to find when you need to find it? Never mind. Anyway, Mark Madden, excuse me, did speak of his disgust of Donald Trump and how cruel he is. And I think, and apparently got pushback from his guy audience who, thought he was on their side politically. And he said that his station was getting calls to throw him out because he expressed this anger and revulsion about Trump. This had to do with the Rob Reiner stuff. And damn, he said to the people who were gunning for him, and the fact that said that he was losing his listeners, he was saying, yeah, go, I don't give a shit. He said, I was brought up to believe that there are certain things you do, certain things you don't. Some things you say, some things you don't. And I'm thinking, Mark Madden is saying this? And he was, because Donald effing Trump has gone too far. Apparently, he went too far for him even earlier. So, inasmuch as there are these guys who have microphones, who are not liberals like me, and who are expressing their revulsion, you gotta figure that the bubble that the Fox News crowd lives in is being pierced more and more and more and more by another point of view and by this kind of condemnation of him. And so there's a possibility of hope. Chiefs of police, right-wing Hollywood actors, Mark Madden, who knows? These are people who are not often, allies politically. But it turns out there's a common human quality that they and we possess. And we got to just keep our eyes on that kind of overlap and embrace those people when they stand with us. I don't know. Not very well said. I'm looking at you guys, and I don't know that I'm seeing much. And now I see it's 11 o'clock, which means I'm out of here. I want to thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you have a good weekend, a harried weekend before Christmas weekend, and thank you. Stay cool, stay dry, stay warm, stay active.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.